Yusuf Ali's opinion. We now come to the Iron Gate, which corresponds exactly to the Quranic description and has the best claim to be connected with Alexander's story. It is near another Durban in Central Asia, Hisar district, about 150 miles about east of Bukhara, a very narrow defile with overhanging rocks, occurs on the main route between Turkestan and India. Latitude 38 degrees north, longitude 67 degrees east. It is now called in Turkey Buzgol Khana, goat house, but was formerly known as the Iron Gate, Arabic Babul Hadid, Persian Dare Ahni, Chinese Taiman Kuan. There is no Iron Gate there now, but there was one in the 7th century when the Chinese traveler Yuan Xiang saw it on his journey to India. He saw two folding gates cased with iron and hung with bells. Nearby is a lake named Iskandarkul, connecting the locality with Alexander the Great. We also know from Muqaddasi, the Arab traveler and geographer who wrote about AH 375, AD 985 or 6, that the Abbasi Khalifa Wathiq sent out a mission to Central Asia to report on this iron gate. They found a defile 150 yards wide on two jambs made with bricks of iron welded together with molten lead were hung two huge gates which were kept closed. Nothing could correspond more exactly with the description in 18th XVII 95-96. Maulana Maudud's opinion. Explanation of Surah Kahf. 63. Surah number 63. Ayat number 63. The limit where the sun set does not mean the place of the setting of the sun. According to Ibn Khatir, it means that he might to the west, conquering one country after the other till he reached the last boundary of the land, beyond which there was ocean. He found the sun setting in black muddy water of the sea. If Zulkarnain was Cyrus, then that place would be the western limit of Asia Minor, and the black waters would be the Aegean Sea. This interpretation is supported by the use of the word in instead of Bahar in the Quran. 65. We said to him does not necessarily mean that Allah directly revealed to him these words and that Zulkarnain was prophet or was the one who received inspiration from Allah. And the same is the reasonable conjecture. This concerns the time when Zulkarnain had taken possession of the land as a conqueror, and the conquered people were utterly at your mercy. Then Allah posed a question before his conscience as if to say, now is the time of your trial. These people are utterly at your mercy, and you have the option either to behave unjustly towards them or to treat them generously. Ayat number 66. That is, when he advanced towards the east, conquering one country after the other, he reached a territory where the limits of the civilized world had come to an end, and beyond which was the territory of barbaric people who had no shelter at all of tents or buildings. Ayah 67. The two mountains must have been parts of the mountain range which run between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea as stated in volume 96. This must be so because beyond them was the territory of Gog and Magog. Ayat 68. That is, it was difficult to communicate with them. Their language was almost foreign to Zulkarnain and his companions, and as they were quite barbaric, none could understand their language, nor were they acquainted with any foreign language. 70. That is, as a ruler, it is my duty to protect you from the ravages of your enemies. Therefore, it is not lawful for me to levy any extra taxes on you for this purpose. The treasury that Allah has placed in my custody suffices for this purpose. You shall, however, have to help me with your manual labor. That is, Ayat 71, that is, though I have built a very strong iron wall as far as it was possible for me, it is not everlasting, for it will last only as long as Allah wills, and will fall down to pieces when the time of my Lord's promise shall come. Then no power in the world shall be able to keep it safe and secure. As regards the time of Allah's promise, it has two meanings. It may mean the time of the destruction of the wall, and it may also mean that time of the death and destruction of everything destined by Allah at the end of the world. That is the hour of resurrection. Some people have entertained the misunderstanding that the wall attributed here to Zulkarnain refers to the famous wall of China, whereas this wall was built between Darpant and Daryal, two cities of Dagestan in the Caucasus, the land that lies between the Black Sea and the Caspian. There are high mountains between the Black Sea and Daryal, having deep gorges which cannot allow large armies to pass through them. Between Darband and Daryal, however, there are no such mountains, and the passes also are wide and passable. In ancient times, savage hordes from the north invaded and ravaged southern lands through these passes, and the Persian rulers who were scared of them had to build a strong wall, 50 miles long, 29 feet high, and 10 feet wide, for fortification purposes, ruins of which can still be seen. Though it has not yet been established historically who built this wall in the beginning, the Muslim historians and geographers assign it to Zulkarnain because its remain correspond with the description of it given in the Quran. Ibn Jarir Tabri and Ibn Khatir have recorded the event, and Yaqut has mentioned it in his Majmul Baldan that when, after the conquest of Azerbaijan, Hazrat Umar sent Suraka bin Amr in 22 AH on an expedition to Derbent. The later appointed Abdul Rahman bin Rabi as the chief of his vanguard. When Abdul Rahman entered Armenia, the ruler Sharbaraz surrendered without fighting. Then, when Abdul Rahman wanted to advance toward Derbent, Sharbaraz informed him that he had already gathered full information about the wall built by Zulkarnain through a man who could supply all the necessary details, and then the man was actually presented before Abdul Rahman, according to Tabri, volume 3, pp 235 to 239, Al-Bidaya wa Nihaya, volume 7, pp 122 to 125, and Majmul Baldan under Babul Abwab Derbent. 200 years later, the Abbasid Caliph Wathiq dispatched a party of 50 men under Salamul Tarjuman to study the wall of Zulkarnain, whose observation have been recorded in great detail by Yaqut in Mujam al-Baldan and by Ibn Khatir in Al-Bidaya. They write that this expedition reached Samra, from where they reached Tiflis, the present-day Tbilisi, and then through Samra, from where they reached Tiflis, the present-day Tbilisi, and then through Sarir and Alan, they reached Filansha, from where they entered the Caspian territory. From there they arrived at Derbent and saw the wall. Al-Bidaya, volume 2, page 3, volume 7, page 122 to 125, Mujmal Baldan under Babul Abwab. This clearly shows that even up till the 3rd century of Hijrah, the Muslim scholars regarded this wall of the Caucasus as the wall of Zulkarnain. Reading regarding Babul Abwab, he says that this city is called both Al-Bab and Derbent, which is a highly difficult passage for the people coming from the northland towards the south. Once this territory was a part of the kingdom of Noshma, and the Persian rulers paid particular attention to strengthening their frontiers on that side. Ayat 72. Here the story of Zulkarnain comes to an end. Though this story has been related in answer to the questions put the disbelievers of Makkah as a test, along with the stories of the sleepers of the cave and Moses and Khidr. The Quran has utilized this story too for its own aim and object, as if to say, Zulkarnain, about whose glory you have heard from the people of the book, was not merely a conqueror, but also a believer of the doctrines of Tawheed and the life after death, and acted upon the principles of justice and generosity. He was not a mean person. He was not a mean person like you, who have been puffed up by the possession of petty estates and give yourself airs of superiority. 73. On that day, the day of resurrection, as if to continue the theme of life after death to which Zulkarnain refers as the time of my Lord's promise. The Quran has added verses 99, 101 to it. Yaqut in his Majmaul Baldan has further confirmed the same view at a number of places. For instance, under Ghazar Caspian, the writer, he writes, the territory belonged to the Turks, which adjoins the wall of Zulkarnain just behind Babul Awab, which is also called Darban. In the same connection, he records a report by Ahmad bin Fadlan, the ambassador of Caliph al-Muqtadar Billah, who has given a full description of the Caspian Dam, saying that Caspian is the name of a country whose capital is Itil, near the present-day Astrakhan, right through which flows river Itil, which joins the Caspian from Russia and Bulgaria. Reading regarding Babul Abwab, he says that this city is called both Al-Bab and Darban, which is a highly difficult passage for the people coming from the northland towards the south. Once this territory was a part of the kingdom of Noshma, and the Persian rulers paid particular attention to strengthening their frontiers on that side. Ayat 72. Here the story of Zulkarnain comes to an end. Though this story has been related in answer to the questions put the disbelievers of Makkah as a test, along with the stories of the sleepers of the cave and Moses and Khidr. The Quran has utilized this story too for its own aim and object, as if to say, Zulkarnain, about whose glory you have heard from the people of the book, was not merely a conqueror, but also a believer of the doctrines of Tawheed and the life after death, and acted upon the principles of justice and generosity. He was not a mean person. He was not a mean person like you, who have been puffed up by the possession of petty estates and give yourself airs of superiority. 73. On that day, the day of resurrection, as if to continue the theme of life after death to which Zulkarnain refers as the time of my Lord's promise. The Quran has added verses 99, 101 to it.